days ago, during a transmission from the Mir space station, something came onto the ship. We thought our transmitters and receivers were malfunctioning, so we shut them down. It took control of computers, scanned all information, language, encyclopedias, medical data. It was learning. Learning what? How to kill us.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Movie Oblivion, the podcast about feature films based on comic books and comic strips that people have stopped talking about, or were never talking about. We are your hosts, Jordan and Kumar, that's me.
And me.
And this week we are talking about Virus from 1999, in celebration of the life of Donald Sutherland.
The life and amazing career.
Yes.
This film accepted.
This film
Donald
Sutherland. And also it's our Canada Day, Canada Week.
Of course. Happy Canada Day, eh?
Yep. So that's why we just suddenly switched to covering a Donald Sutherland movie.
Of course, a great a citizen of Canada.
Yes, from very, very close to my neck of the woods. Just an hour up the road. Way out, like a kind of country, not country, but small town. Not even small by relatively small.
So, well, it's produced two famous sons then. Donald Sutherland and Kumar.
Yeah, is there any... I'm sure there's a whole list of people I'm forgetting. Often we don't know, but for some reason people always like, oh yeah, Donald Sutherland's from St. John or whatever. I don't know why. I'm sure there are other people out there that were famous and we just don't hear about it.
Also starring Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yes.
In this film, and one of the Baldwins.
Yes, William.
Discount.
Sometimes known as Billy.
One of the discount Baldwins.
Yeah. He's not the lowest. There's one that's like really low on the ladder. That was like in one episode of Sopranos, that guy. I can't even remember his name. And I think there's a fourth one.
So this is Billy Baldwin.
This is Billy, a.k.a. William. Sometimes he's credited as Billy, sometimes William. Let's do a pause the podcast.
Nope.
Yeah, definitely not.
This is the most cliched pile of crap imaginable.
You've seen it. You think you haven't seen this movie. In effect, you've seen every scene in it. You've read every scene of this comic. You've read every line out of it. You've seen it somewhere else. Yep. Not in this specifically, but in your mind you can patch together this comic and this movie.
It's the most derivative schlock imaginable. So don't watch it. Don't pause the podcast.
Yeah. Okay, so Virus was a 4-issue series that came out around 1992, 1993 from Dark Horse Comics. Each issue is 32 pages. I'm going to come back to this in a bit. That's a slightly important detail.
Oh.
But we do have a situation here where this guy, Pfrarrer, who had not written many comics at all, in fact, he wrote this, and he wrote the adaptation of the Barbed Wire movie for Dark Horse.
Oh, really? I must have missed that detail.
After this. And I can't remember if there was something else on his list or not.
Oh, there was something on his list. Before he wrote this,
yes,
he wrote, for Dark Horse, a sequel comic.
Yes, okay.
Say it. To The Thing.
The Thing, yes. A sequel to The Thing. That is a key...
Oh, this is absolutely
That's a key element in this puzzle we're putting together.
Yeah, we'll be returning to that.
The artist was a guy named Howard Cobb. Now, Howard Cobb... You're reading this, his art's not great, he's kind of a journeyman.
Right.
Before this, he had done some Quantum Leap comics for Innovation, and he did maybe like some Predator comics for Dark Horse, and that's it, and then he disappears. And he went off and became a fine artist. So I looked at his website. He was born in England, but immigrated to Canada. He now lives in Calgary, I believe, or somewhere around there.
Amazing.
So he's Canadian.
Another Canadian connection.
But he's just doing like landscape paintings now. Like that's his career.
Good for him.
Like yes,
he got out of this crap.
No, and so I'm looking at this as pretty rough work.
Yeah.
A lot of the perspective is messed up.
Yeah, I can't tell what's going on a lot.
Comic art perspective is a very specific skill. There's bits like where one character is pointing at another character, but the other character is like turned in the wrong direction. Like he's pointing towards us instead of at the person. Or there's one moment where somebody claps their hand onto somebody's shoulder and he's trying to put one person in front of one, and it's all the sizes are all weird.
Also, I found that during some of the action sequences, I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah,
something's blowing up or something's falling onto something else. I don't know where that thing that its falling came from. I don't know what it's falling onto.
Yeah. So this is a beginner cartoonist, basically. He hasn't drawn a lot, and suddenly he's on this book, and it's 32 pages. It's not your 24-page comic. 32 pages a month. That is a lot. That is a lot, especially for somebody who's just kind of had a few issues under their belt and hasn't done much else.
Yeah, some of the art, so the figures, the characters, they'll be drawn in a single colour, like a single colour shade.
Yeah.
Which gets really unfortunate when he starts drawing Chinese characters.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're just block yellow.
Yes. I will say that the faces are good.
Yeah,
you can tell all the characters apart. Everyone has a distinct face. He actually worked pretty hard on that, it seems like.
That's fine. But the colouring, no, I don't like the colouring.
No, I don't know who the colorist was. I did look up her name, but I don't know if... Rochelle Menache? Don't know her. Inks are by Jimmy Palmiotti, who is a big deal in the industry. He became like a major inker. He's still very busy and a good ink, and actually some of the inks were good. But yeah, so... This guy's been given an impossible task right out of the gate. Now, the other thing...
To draw so many pages.
To draw so many pages. He hasn't drawn many comics before, and it's suddenly like, here, kid, do 32 pages a month of this. And this is pre-Google. Very hard to look up what a warship looks like, or all these different bits, all the stuff all over the place. Every object, there's so much... technical stuff in here that he has to draw without... Very difficult to find reference for that stuff right at that point in time.
Okay.
So, I'm not placing any of the blame on his feet. However, this guy, Chuck Pfrarrer, wrote a movie script.
Yes.
Virus.
That's right.
Now, seems like he couldn't sell it, either because it wasn't good, or I think his excuse is the special effects weren't possible at the time.
I found an interview with him.
Okay.
So, Cinefantastic magazine in 1999 did about 12 to 15 pages on this film, on Virus, before it came out.
Yep.
Maybe thinking it was going to be a hit or something.
Yep.
Or just reporting on the film industry, which is what they did.
They did, yep.
And they had 2 pages of an interview with Pfrarrer, and he said, quote, "I'm at Universal and I go to the Black Tower, that dreaded structure in Hollywood. I get the old pitch machine out and I say, how about this? I pitch Virus and they say, how about get out of the building?" That's pretty irreverent kind of like interview.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then of course, I presume you were going to go on to say, he took it to Dark Horse. He took it to specifically...
Mike Richardson. Mike Richardson, I don't know why he thought this would make a good comic. But anyway...
This guy wrote the sequel to The Thing. And I imagine, here's what Pfrarrer did with his irreverent tone. Hey man, this is going to be like The Thing, except it's going to be in a boat, and it's going to be machines instead of biologicals.
Yeah,
Because that's what this is. This is The Thing on a boat.
I don't believe the excuse about the special effects, because actually a lot of the special effects here are practical. Mm-hmm. There may be some CG shots here and there, but I do believe this could have been made in 92 or 3.
They just told him to get out because it was a shitty derivative script.
Yeah.
So that's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he took it to Mike Richardson, and then they wrote the comic.
Yep.
Drew the comic, printed the comic, and apparently it sold quite well.
Right.
About 100,000 issues per volume.
Massive, actually.
400,000 all up, apparently.
That is huge.
That's the figure that's quoted.
How did that happen?
I don't know.
In the 90s. Okay, so we have to accept that.
I've seen that figure quoted.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some inflation going on there, some hype.
Okay.
But it was sufficiently popular that they were able to then, and as we've talked about this before, you want to get your film made, it helps if you can go to these hacks.
Yeah.
And hold up a
the executives.
Say, this is what it is.
The executives are dum-dums. They don't understand words. Mm-hmm. You have to show them pictures.
They love it, and they probably, like Verotic, they probably think they're looking at storyboards when they look at a comic. Oh, this is exactly what the movie's going to look like. Yes. It's going to look like these pictures.
Yes. Yes. And that's what happened. So we had a screenplay that he could not sell. Got turned into a comic, and then once they had the comic, and then we had the Dark Horse pipeline, they were able to get this thing
We've talked about the Dark Horse pipeline before, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, so he says, in the interview, that Universal was eager, quote unquote, eager to do the film.
Yeah.
once they heard that it had been a well-selling comic, and presumably once they were able to look at the pretty pictures on paper.
Yeah.
And didn't have to, you know, listen to a fat
So this
slob
is still
talking about
only-
how he's going to do the thing on a boat.
This is 10 years after Batman, so we're still, you know, there's still probably some, what's a comic book property we can turn into this thing?
Yes. That's probably reassuring knowing that there's a pre-existing property and a pre-existing audience.
Yeah. Okay, so I will say, one thing that, when it starts, I was like, there's a lot of jargon about ships. It's set on this this ship that's hauling a barge.
In the middle of the Pacific.
In the middle of
I already had questions here, because it's a tug.
Yeah.
They tell us it's a tug.
Yeah.
Tugs do not tow barges in the open ocean. That's not what they're for.
Yeah, I've never heard of such a thing.
That's not a thing that happens.
But I will say there's a lot of ship jargon, like shipping jargon in this comic, which convinced me that either he researched it or he was good at faking it to make
I would
it
say he's good at faking
solid.
it because he makes some problem. He makes some errors. You know, the film actually explains the tug barge thing.
Yes.
I think, whereas the comic does not. There's no reason why a flat-bottom tug is towing an enormous barge full of material in the middle of the Pacific.
Yeah.
Where's its fuel coming from? It doesn't have enough fuel to cross an ocean. You know, like, this isn't a thing. They don't do that. they operate in harbours.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's a minor point, I suppose. And actually, the film addresses it.
Okay, here, let's lay all the cards on the table. Was the Nostromo a tug? Wasn't it hauling barge?
Oh, of course. Yeah, but that's different. That's space.
That's the explanation.
Of course.
The explanation is
God,
that
you're so right.
this guy pulled every idea from Nostromo. Even if the Nostromo wasn't a tug, they were like some kind of mining.
They were like space truckers.
Yeah.
So it was like the big truck behind, and they were in the cab.
Yeah.
At the front. But you're exactly right. I 100% believe you.
Yeah.
That's what he did. He's just ripped off Alien.
But here's the thing, as we'll progress through the episode, I don't know if he consciously ripped off Alien or if he's one of these guys that's just like a jock kind of guy that doesn't know that he's doing it.
It's both are as bad as the other.
Sure, I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying I don't know what's...
He's a hack in both interpretations.
Or if it's his pitch is like, it's Alien, like you said, the thing at sea, it's Alien at sea. Cause
it's the alien and the thing.
Yeah. Oh, and it's
on a boat,
and about 30 other things that I've written down in my notes.
Fantastic! I'm so glad you did that.
Yeah. So
that's genius.
The ship is out at. It's in the middle of this huge storm. We meet our hero, this guy named Averill, who is Bruce Willis. So this guy walks around in his undershirt.
Yep.
And his muscles. Muscles are always bulging. And he's every character. I'm going to say not just him. Every character is just quippy one-liners.
Oh, it's terrible.
No matter how bad the situation is, they are joking about shit. Like I think when the first day, like when night turns to day, his like. I started writing some of these down. Like, whoa, daylight! What a concept! Is something that someone says.
Yes, he says that. The main character, who we're introduced to when he's stripped to the waist in the engine room. Working on the engine with his... He's a mesomorph in incredible shape.
It's very much like...
Behind him is a man vomiting in a bucket.
There's a lot of vomiting in this comic.
So we know everything we need to know, or what Pfrarrer thinks we need to know, which is that stripped to the waist Hero Man is our protagonist.
And he doesn't get seasick. He's a tough guy.
In the background, an inferior man, who we should not care about or pay attention to, is vomiting in a bucket. Also, he tells him to wipe your chin as he leaves the room.
Yeah.
You know, as you say, everyone's delivering cheesy action hero.
Oh, everyone! It's not just one character is a funny guy. There's like at one point somebody shoots somebody and they're like, "How'd you learn to shoot?" And he said, "I was in a youth group in Brooklyn." And at some point when they shoot the jet that's on the deck, he's like, somebody says, "This flight is canceled." Like as they're blowing up the airplane. Like every single thing that happens has to come with a Schwarzenegger line attached.
Yeah.
It is relentless.
Awful.
It was exhausting.
Yeah.
I was so tired of the dialogue.
Yeah.
Because it just, as I said, it wasn't just one guy that was doing this all the time. It wasn't your Bruce Willis. Everybody had to be funny.
Everybody
Have
was
to give a
spouting.
sarcastic line.
Yeah.
They couldn't just speak or be afraid of things that were happening around them
Yeah.
in a way that they would speak normally. There was no thought to any of this. It was just like, what's the quippiest way I can deliver this line?
This is what his movie script must have been like.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was writing a satire.
No. No. So, after the storm, I think they're kind of... Well, anyway, on the radar, they detect this ship, right?
Yep.
And it's a Chinese vessel, and it's a space event ship research vessel. Is this a real thing?
No.
Okay.
No.
It's got like all these satellites and stuff on it.
SETI.
Yeah, it's got like all these like satellite dishes and stuff on it. And it looks... The one in the movie looks really good. I guess it must have been a model that was shot very cleverly.
Oh no, they got it. There probably was some model work, but they got a real ship too.
Oh, but they put the satellite dishes and stuff on it?
Yeah,
Okay.
they did, and put all the Russian, the Cyrillic writing on it for the name of the ship. Yeah, they spent a lot of money on this movie.
Yeah. So there's a scene in here where, like right during the storm, this guy Averill, our hero, our Bruce Willis, fires off like an acetylene canister.
He does a Jaws thing. He says,
and then he shoots it.
Yeah, he does. He actually says, "Watch this, kid." So as you said, yeah, this is Jaws. I said that as well when I've written
Everything
it down.
comes from somewhere else.
So what's happening there is they're towing this barge in a storm. The captain is
He's obsessed with protecting the
investment or the cargo.
Whatever the cargo. He's obsessed because he wants money. All he cares about is money, money, money.
He's an inferior man. He's not like Averill. He's weedy. He's only the captain because his father owns the shipping company, which we're told in dialogue. And as you said, he keeps making bad decision after bad decision. He refuses to jettison the cargo. And then when they find the Chinese ship adrift with no apparent crew, they decide, great, we're going to salvage this. This is how I'm going to make up for my screw-up with the barge.
Yes, because they can sell the...
So the barge, they needed to cut the barge loose because in the storm it had started taking on water and it was going to run over them or something from behind. That's why he has to roll the acetylene canister and shoot it with the gun. Watch this, kid!
Yeah.
Check out while I jaws this shit.
Yeah, yeah. So they find this Chinese vessel with all the satellite dishes and stuff on it adrift.
Yes.
This is much like finding another Antarctic research station. And then they watch the video.
Yeah.
They find video.
Just
and
like
they watch
in
that.
The Thing.
Exactly the Thing.
Yeah. The video's in English.
Beat for beat.
For no reason, these Chinese scientists... Well, they try to explain
they say... There's a line of dialogue which is... English is the language of science. That's not true.
That's not true.
That's his excuse. Yeah. But the craziest thing is when they go on board, they have all the things, everything's in Chinese, so they can't read it. They find a Chinese English dictionary, they use it. That's not how that works.
No, it's
you
not.
Cannot
Explain why this doesn't work, Kumar, as a reader of Chinese characters.
The Chinese characters are not phonetic. A Chinese to English, if you see some Chinese writing, if it was in Romanized phonetic English, you could look at that. If you had a phonetic dictionary, you could look it up.
Yep.
But if it's those symbols, you don't know what order those are listed in a Chinese dictionary.
Nope.
You might be able to stare at it for a long... You'd have to flip through every page, try to find a match. It doesn't work that way. But it's magic in this.
Yeah.
They use this Chinese English dictionary
This is a universal translator in this book.
Crazy.
Also, in this video, we hear that they've established two-way contact with the Pleiades star system, as they call it. Now,
two-way contact?
Yeah.
Did they say that?
They did.
Okay, how long does it take a signal to reach Pleiades?
450 years.
Okay, great. Great.
The Chinese have had a space program for a really long time.
And they got a signal back, so it's 900 years, right?
Yes.
They're communicating. Brilliant. Okay. So they go on this ship and the crew's all dead, right? It's the Thing. They've gone into the other station. Everybody on board is dead. They're like, what happened here? So in the second issue, they start exploring the ship, basically. We've got two guys that go down into the hold of the ship and are exploring it. This is your Brett and Parker, right? Yep. All those scenes, or Parker and Lambert, where they're going around the ship.
Yep.
it was driving me crazy, actually, this kind of stuff.
So glad.
The craziest thing in the second issue is there's an attempt at a jump scare where somebody walks up behind a character and then you turn the page and they're like, ah.
That doesn't work in a comic.
It works in a Japanese comic where you have 200 pages and you can have pages and pages. So I've seen it work in a Japanese comic. You can't do this 32 pages.
You can't do a jump scare in 32 pages.
No.
But you could put a jump scare in a script.
Yes.
And then you could put the jump scare from your script into your shitty comic that you're writing.
So the executive producer could look at it and say, oh, I get it. This is the part where the audience gets scared because the other character came up behind them. Yeah, crazy.
Any executive producers listening who want to turn Kumar's novel into a film, we have enormous respect for your profession. Please contact us. Contact details in the show notes.
By the way, this is the issue where they find the video, right? There's a quip in there about how they probably like Bruce Lee movies, or they were watching Bruce Lee movies. And I'm like, come on, just rein it in a little bit. Okay, so now we figure out that these aliens are taking over. They're taking over all the tech on the ship and like rebuilding it, but they're also taking over people because the captain is taking over.
The signal from the Pleiades it has come down in binary, and once it's got in the computer, it's taken it over.
Yeah.
And it started biohacking. So there are labs, there are manufactories on the ship.
Yeah.
And it doesn't distinguish between metal parts and human parts. This is a creepy, this is a Thing rip-off. The Thing, but
it's The Thing. It's also Tetsuo the Iron Man.
Right. Sure. I doubt this guy saw Tetsuo the Iron Man, but it is kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when we get to the movie, I mean, the first time you see one,
that's like Tetsuo the Iron Man.
Well, that's like the Borg. It really looks like the Borg in silhouette.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's we never really learn anything about it. We just know that it's malicious code. It's like a computer virus. The title virus is apt here.
Yes.
Because it's basically behaving like a biological or computer virus in that it's taking over a system and subverting it to its own needs.
I do like that we don't know much about it.
Yes. This is
But I do wonder how this thing exists in anywhere else. How does it function when it doesn't have machinery to build bodies for itself?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
They established two-way contact, remember?
Yes.
It knows whoever they were out in the Pleiades, they knew that they were sending this, that there were people capable of receiving it and downloading it.
So the main thing is that it's siphoning power from the ship. So the ship was derelict. It was shut down when our crew came on board.
The Chinese crew shut it down.
They shut it down because the alien was feeding off of the energy. Yeah, it's also a nuclear-powered vessel.
Yeah, well, that's not a thing as well.
Yes.
There are nuclear-powered vessels, of course.
Yeah.
But they're usually aircraft carriers or submarines.
Submarines, yeah.
They're not research vessels.
No. But it was just
China definitely didn't have them, I don't think, in the 90s.
Yeah, well, it's just telegraphing, like, this is going to come in later on, So anyway, because they powered the ship back up to try to get it to shore. By the way, their own ship, or their lifeboat at least, was destroyed. The thing, it dropped its own anchor, right? Yes. That was the first clue. Whoa! It turned itself on. Once they turn on the power, it starts acting up on its own.
Yes.
It's like watching them through monitors.
Yeah, he goes to all the trouble of differentiating between they have a DC generator on the ship and they have the nuclear generator on the ship. The DC generator runs kind of like the electronics. The nuclear generator runs the propulsion. Why bother?
Yeah. I think the movie figured that out. Yeah. The movie's like, why bother with this?
Just don't bother with that. There's just power somewhere.
Yeah. So this is... third issue, basically everything's going crazy, everything's coming to life, people are being brought back as these Tetsuos, the Iron Mans.
Yep. The captain gets brought back.
Yeah.
Everyone's shooting guns a lot.
A lot of shooting guns.
Things are exploding when they're getting shot a lot. Again, this is a real action movie.
Yeah.
Cliche.
Yeah.
In real life, things don't generally explode when you shoot them with inert slugs.
Yeah.
But here, of course, everything's exploding as soon as you look at it funny.
Yes. But it's basically, they're running around the ship trying to find these things, or being chased by them, etc. It's very Alien or The Thing.
Though some things are a little out of character. At one point, one of their colleagues leaves, and they hear him calling for help. And that's how the third issue ends.
Third issue ends with "Somebody help me!" And then issue 4, you can say what happens. Page 1 of issue 4, the same character.
Yeah. So the final page of issue 3 is the head. It's a head.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just like in Mars Attacks where they have. Is it Timothy Dalton? No, it's not Timothy Dalton.
It's Pierce Brosnan.
Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah.
That's right. It's Pierce Brosnan's head, and it's like that. It's just the head saying, "Help me!"
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's a head. Then in issue 4, it says, "What took you so long?"
And it says, "Hello, boys and girls."
Why is an alien virus taunting them?
Because this is a weird thing. Because, well, why is it talking about? Also, how did it change personalities from 1 second to the next?
Yeah. Why would it do
Issues
that too?
1, 2, and 3. The issues stop arbitrarily. There's no, cliffhanger. You can tell this is a script that was just chopped into pieces. There's, no beginning or end to the issues. It's just, running on and on. It's just the next 30 pages. But this issue suddenly had a cliffhanger, and then when he picked up the cliffhanger the next issue, it just made no sense. No. It was like a different character.
And then the robot throws the head at them.
Yes.
So not only does he say, "Hello, boys and girls, what took you so long?" which is very out of character for an alien non-sentient virus, probably. It then throws itself at them.
Yeah.
To freak them out? How would it know what freaks a human out?
Well, it knows everything about humans from being in the computer, at least in the movie.
Yeah, well, that's the movie, though.
I don't remember...
In the comic, though, it's not... It's not... I don't think it's sapient in the comic.
Well, it must know... Okay, it knows their language because it's speaking through people in words that they would use. Like, "Hello, boys and girls, what took you so long?"
Yeah,
so it has the human mind, it has access to human thoughts. So it maybe knows that throwing a head at them will spook them.
Well, it's just... Yeah, but... Nah.
I don't
It doesn't really seem to be... I don't think it would be a high priority for an alien virus to spook people.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't know what is on this virus. But the main thing is these people are like, well, we have to stop this thing before we get to land.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if it can connect with the network...
Where have we heard this before?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it'll get to everybody.
Like the Thing.
Just like the Thing. There's also virus cam.
And just like the Thing, it's building a ship on the deck. Just like how Wilfred Brimley was building a spaceship in Antarctica in the Thing. The alien virus is outfitting a aeroplane.
A jet, yeah.
Why is there a jet on a research vessel? Did it build it from scratch?
Not only that, I didn't really understand
deck?
this jet scene because they blew it up and they said the flight is cancelled. They blew it up, but then it seemed to stand up as if it's like wings or arms.
It was a transformer.
Yeah, it was weird. A weird moment where, and like the
alien virus had transformers on the
so weird.
The Chinese scientists were big fans of Michael Bay.
Yeah.
Oh, they're a little early for Michael Bay's Transformers, actually.
Yes.
They were a big fan of the cartoon.
Yeah. But it was more, you know what, it was early it reminded me of Pixar's Planes. That's what it was like. Like a plane, like Cars, the sequel to Cars, the third one.
I never saw that
Pixar.
one.
I haven't seen it, but it was like planes with eyes.
Yeah.
But the wings were like arms. Anyway, so weird.
And also you don't really know what's going on. As you say, the wings seem like arms, but because of the way it's drawn...
It's kind of silhouette-y. It's hard to tell what's going on.
You can't tell what's happening.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, there's some virus cam in here, which is, again, this is for the executives. It's like Terminator. You'll be able to see what the virus is saying.
That's right, it is like Terminator. That's something we don't get in The Thing or Alien. We don't see the alien's perspective, but we do in Terminator, and that's presumably what inspired him.
Yeah. And then they rig this place to blow. Did they do something with the nuclear engine? I don't remember. But finally, they
make it melt down or something.
There are two women.
Is that why there's a nuclear engine?
Yeah, I think so. There were two women. I think there's a first mate, and there's another one who's like a communications officer. She gets killed, I think, earlier. The first mate survives to the end, and when she kills the thing, she says, "The first mate is pleased to announce swim call."
At what point, when he wrote that down, did he think that was a good line?
I don't know.
What fever dream?
So they blow up the ship. I mean, I read these 4 issues, I think, yesterday, and I'm struggling to remember things that happened in it. because it's all just stuff we've seen elsewhere.
Yeah,
and so they blow up the ship.
And then
Helicopter
just like
comes to
Alien,
the rescue.
No, right? They blow up the ship.
Yeah.
But then just like Alien,
Yeah.
it gets off the ship at the last
Yes, that's
second
right.
and joins them on their little escape
Yeah.
vessel.
Yeah.
And they have to beat it a final time and send it to the deep. And then, as you say, a helicopter comes and rescues them, tells them that every ship in the Pacific is looking for this Chinese vessel.
Yeah.
So we were always going to find you. And then it's finally over, they take it away, and then of course we get the Stinger,
The floppy disk
which is a
floating
floppy
on
disk.
the water.
Floppy disks, famously impervious to salt water.
Yeah.
Also, what's the capacity of a floppy disk? Do you remember?
It was it 512 megabytes?
No way. It was like 1.5 megabytes.
Oh, 1.44.
Yes, 1.44, that's
Yeah,
exactly
that's
right.
right.
And we already know that the virus, because unwisely, Pfrarrer gives us a figure for the size of the virus, 20,000 megabytes.
Huh.
Or 20 gig.
Yeah.
20 gig is not going to
Not
fit.
going to fit on that disk anyway.
You need a fuckload of floppy
that disk
disks.
that's floating on salt water. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a mess.
Yeah, massive mess. And yet sold a lot of copies, apparently.
Well, I will say the covers of the first two issues were by Mike Plug, and they're pretty cool.
The covers do look cool.
The second two covers were by Cobb and Palmiotti, so they aren't quite as wild as those two Mike Plug covers.
You look at the covers and you think, whoa, this is going to be cool.
Yeah.
Because you see it's these hybrids. They're sort of like half flesh, half machine, crab-like or bat-like drones. And they do look
It's
pretty...
like a mosquito issue. One had like a mosquito kind of thing.
They do look pretty rad on the cover. But then they don't look as rad. A lot of eyeballs. Apparently, I don't know if it's Pfrarrer or the artist, but they really think eyeballs are going to do a lot of the work. It's like Sam Raimi. Everything's got an eyeball.
Yeah, right.
Where'd they get all these eyeballs from? There's only so many eyeballs going around. Every one of these things has an eyeball sticking out.
That is true. Okay, so as with jiu-jitsu extraction, we've got a reverse engineered situation here where the person really wants their movie to get made, their movie gets made.
Yep.
It's directed by John Bruno, who is a special effects guy.
Collaborator of James Cameron.
James Cameron on The Abyss. The Abyss is another one I thought about a lot.
Yeah.
Reading this.
Oh yeah. He also worked on Terminator with James Cameron too.
So there's that. He was also he directed the soft landing section of Heavy Metal.
Yes, he did. And he was also involved with the Tana story as well. He didn't have primary directing credit, but he was involved in it, I think, perhaps as a secondary director.
So the script is written by Pfrarrer and somebody named Dennis Feldman. I don't know who that is.
Dennis Feldman wrote Species.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
It's all coming
What is
together.
happening?
It's all coming together.
Okay.
And there's also uncredited work by a guy called Jonathan Hensley.
Director of Punisher 2004.
That's right.
Now, where did this information come from? Because it says that on Wikipedia, but I couldn't find it.
I've just gotten that from Wikipedia.
Yeah. Weird. Maybe he was just a script doctor. I don't know.
I think so. Wikipedia will usually provide a citation. If it wasn't the Cinefantastic magazine, it might be something else. I can look that up and get back to the listeners if they care.
Also, jumping my head. The movie, in a sense, corrects a lot of the problems with the comic.
Some of them,
but then introduce other ones. So
yes, that's right.
We don't have the tough guy Bruce Willis type who's just constantly joking every line.
No. Instead, we have no protagonist.
That's right. There seems to be
which is an odd choice.
It is very odd. But when I read the comic and I saw that very obvious Bruce Willis, and I knew the movie was going to be William Baldwin, I was like, oh no. And I was glad when we got to the movie and William Baldwin wasn't forced
He's hardly in it, frankly.
No, he wasn't forced to be Bruce Willis.
He wasn't running around in a singlet.
No. So I was okay with that. Like, that was a change that was okay. But I was reminded of lots of other movies watching this, because of William Baldwin, immediately I thought of Hunt for Red October.
Yeah.
Because of Alec Baldwin. I was like, oh, he's got to do his water movie.
Yeah, he does look a little bit like young Alec Baldwin, doesn't he?
And sound. Sometimes his voice.
I was reminded of Hunt for Red October as well, another shit movie.
Event Horizon is another one that popped into my head. there was a movie called Deep Rising, which came out the year before this, which also has Cliff Curtis in it. He's in both of these.
Yes.
I don't know what
Again,
this
about
is.
monsters coming from the deep and attacking people on a ship.
Yep. There's one particular...
Deep Rising has become a cult classic.
How's it? I haven't seen it.
This film, not so much.
No. There's one of the monsters here that's in a lot of scenes that really looks like Brundlefly.
Yeah.
The design of it.
Yeah, it does. Or the final fly. Well, once... Yeah. Yeah. It looks like the final one. The final one,
The final Brundlefly, yeah. Okay, so this is a Dark Horse production.
Yep.
Hour and 39 minutes. 8 minutes of that is credits, thank God. Dave, so we start with this... Actually, we start with a Russian space event ship.
Yeah.
It's not Chinese, they've changed it.
No, that's because... that seems to be just because John Bruno spent a lot of time on Russian ships.
Oh, okay.
Either in filming The Abyss or doing prep work for Titanic. Because before he started directing this film, he was working on Titanic with James Cameron.
Okay.
And apparently he went down to the Titanic from a Russian ship took them out to the Titanic, and they went down in their submersible. And he spent a lot of time talking to Russian sailors and also experienced a hurricane.
Okay.
And that, according to Cinefantastic magazine, the interview that they did with him, that's kind of what turned him around on the film, because he was very he'd been offered it, but he was very lukewarm about it, understandably.
Yeah.
But after he chatted to some Russian sailors and went through a hurricane, he thought, yeah, maybe I can do this, but I'll just change some stuff. I'll make it a Russian ship, because I know Russian ships now from having been on one for 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I also went through a hurricane, so I think I can direct people going through a hurricane.
Okay. Because he doesn't have a lot of directing credits, right?
None.
And often...
He's a special effects director.
This is not unusual for special effects directors to end up directing a special effects heavy movie. We see it all the time, but this guy's no Mario Bava.
No.
Let's put it that way. Okay, so...
We have this baffling first scene. Well, I say baffling because it's selectively subtitled.
Yeah. Sometimes you get English subs for things they're saying. I think one of the lines about them playing chess, like the chess move is subtitled. Did I imagine that?
Yes. No, yes, it's subtitled.
Why did we need that subtitled? And whole conversations are happening in Russian, which I have to say, good storytelling to not put any subtitles on there, because we don't need them.
Yeah, but I doubt it was on purpose.
But some lines, like the line about Queen to Knight 6 or whatever, like, what?
Why are you translating that? We know that's what you're saying because you then move chess pieces right after.
Bizarre.
And in fact, they translate the name Alexei.
Yeah.
I said this to you in a message. So, we meet, there's a hot Russian scientist.
Yeah.
Okay. She's getting a lot of camera time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Why? We don't... I don't really know why at this point.
No, and we get a little thing where, like, it's made visually clear that she's in a relationship with this Alexei guy who's like the captain.
And she says to him, Alexei, in a voice, in an affectionate voice. And the subtitles translate that. Alexei.
Yes.
Why? And then she goes right back to mumbling into the microphone to Mia, and it just says, speaks Russian dialogue in my English subtitles.
I will say, a name in another language, you don't know it's a name if you hear it, necessarily. You don't know if that's a word for something or a name.
Sometimes.
Without context, right? So it's possible that somebody could say, Alexei, if they've been speaking Russian in the scene, it's going quickly, you might not know that was a name that she said. It's kind of...
That's generous.
I think it's there because that character comes like later, but it would have been better to know her name, which we don't get in that scene.
Yeah.
Bizarre. Okay. They're talking to Mir. Mir gets hit by...
I would say... So, I'm just speculating. I would say they've translated dialogue that was in the script, and then they've just told their extras to speak Russian, say stuff.
Yeah.
Say stuff. We won't translate it.
Yeah.
Just say a bunch of stuff. You're talking to the space station, and they haven't bothered to translate that dialogue. They've only translated the dialogue.
But those aren't extras. Those people in the space stations, those are guild actors, right?
Yeah. I say actors. Dialogue. I just mean people that aren't named characters who speak Russian, because they're speaking Russian.
Yes.
Unless they've been overdubbed.
Yeah.
Just say some stuff. Say some space stuff. You say the lines in the script. Everyone else says space stuff. Don't worry about translating it. No one will care. But people did care.
yeah.
So I was like, what the fuck is going on? Either translate all of it or none of it.
Yes. So the space station is hit by some kind of energy, some force.
Yep. Some very dodgy computer-generated lightning.
Yes. It's destroyed.
It seems to wreck the Mir space station. Because they name it. It's the Mir space station.
Yes, it is.
It's still in orbit at this point. And it's in the middle of transmitting something to their ship. So their ship is, again, it looks just like the Chinese one.
Yeah, the event ship, the ocean-going space
It's
event research ship.
It's a research ship. It's got satellite dishes pointing up.
Yeah.
It's in the Mir is in the process of signaling. They're hit by this electric cloud. The cloud, part of the cloud, all of the cloud beams itself down to the Earth in an enormous kind of burst.
Yes.
And lightning everywhere. Crappy CGI lightning, destroying Mir space station and wreaking havoc on the ship as well.
And on the computers.
Yes.
Because somebody says, one of the subtitles, someone is accessing the computer. That's impossible. Only I have those access codes.
Oh, okay. That was in German for me, so I didn't get that.
And then we get a scream, this shriek, which is very much like from The Thing, or the other Donald Sutherland classic, Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
That's a great
It's kind
movie.
of like a shriek, like, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yes. Yeah. It's an alien sounding scream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get that opening here instead of opening with the storm. But then we cut to 8 days later, 7 days later, and we get our ship, our hero's ship in the storm. Donald Sutherland seems to be doing an accent.
He's doing an Irish
sometimes.
accent, but it's very selective.
It's very like every third scene he might have one line that sounds a little bit like.
Big respect to Donald Sutherland. He knows what kind of movie he's in. He is absolutely phoning this in.
He tried to do an accent in the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice. He was the dad.
Okay.
And I think he kind of pulled it off there. But I don't know what was going on here with his accent.
I think he was just showing up for that paycheck. Sometimes he felt like doing an Irish accent.
It was,
sometimes
you know what it
he
reminded me of? It reminded me of John Voight in Anaconda, and that crazy accent he was doing in that movie. That is wild. He's playing the captain's called Everton. By the way, all the names are different from the comic.
Yep.
And the William Baldwin's character's name is Steve Baker. I was like, I can't believe this. You paid writers to come up with names for these characters, and Steve Baker is what you came up with? Unreal. Anyway, Donald Sutherland is doing this. So he's the captain. He's captain. He wants to protect his cargo. It plays out a bit like the comic at the start. He's like...
But here he's sort of a washed-up, kind of unscrupulous captain. And here he's reluctant to release the cargo because he's gone all in.
Yeah.
So he's bet heavy. Everything he owns is in this cargo. It's not insured. He tells us this. That's why they're doing this shonky operation. As I said, normally this wouldn't happen. Tugs don't tow cargo in the open sea.
Yeah.
This is not a thing.
Yeah.
They don't do well in storms. They need to be in a harbour. Yeah. But Donald Sutherland's character, Captain Everton, is doing it because he's trying to make a quick buck.
Yeah.
And of course it all goes wrong.
Yeah.
And he's about to shoot himself, actually.
Yeah, he's going to kill himself. He loads a gun, he puts it against his head.
Bizarrely, there's a headshot of him. He opens a book, and inside the book is a photo as a bookmark, and it's a headshot of a young Donald Sutherland. Maybe a studio headshot that he used to get acting jobs, maybe when he was a younger man. And he looks at the photo and he says, "I've let you down, lad."
Yeah.
You're like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
That?
This was it. This was going to be, I think this was going to be the windfall that was going to be the success of his life.
Yeah.
He could retire, but he failed.
And so he's telling his photo of his younger self.
He's failed his younger self.
Or
the promise he made to himself.
Maybe it was his son that looked just like him.
It was a black and white photo. It was 1999.
Okay. Yeah, alright. It's just odd. It's just a bit odd. Why put that in?
Yeah. So, they're adrift. There's a bunch
They're in the eye of the hurricane, actually. They've steered into the eye so that they'll have time to repair the ship because it's taken some damage during the storm.
Yeah. I don't know what anyone's role on the ship is.
Well,
for like about an hour. So, and later on we learn...
tells us that she's the navigator.
She tells us she's the navigator. This is much later on. And then we finally learn who some of the other people are. But I have no idea. They're just a bunch of people running around the ship.
Well, they didn't seem to be doing anything in the middle of a storm.
That's right.
They were all just in their bunks.
Yeah.
I just thought it'd be all hands on deck in the middle of a typhoon.
Yeah.
But no, they were just sort of chilling in their rooms.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, Cliff Curtis is in this. I'm always happy to see him show up in anything. He's playing some character named Hiko. Really heavily Maori, as Maori as you can get.
He's
Full
got
faces. He's got the huge. He's got like a medallion size, like that.
A large amulet.
Yeah, that like Maori.
It's like a carved.
Yeah. It's like a person.
Wooden carved. Very large.
Yeah.
Probably about the size of a hand.
Yeah.
I suppose. And he's also carrying a. It's like Maui's hook from from Moana. He's got it in his belt.
Yeah. And he's talking about, he has a speech where he talks about he's going to build a school for Maori
Maoris. Yeah. This is kind of cool.
Yes,
I
go
like
for
this.
it. I was
More
like,
of
yes,
this, thanks.
yes, please. Yeah.
At one point he threatens to cut off someone's hands with his big hook.
Because there is a character in the comic who is named, what was his name?
Akil or something?
Apia? We don't know where he's from.
But we know he's ethnic because he's big.
He's
ethnic
coloured in a weird way.
And he's coloured in weird, yeah.
And you're like, who was this guy? Where's he from? We don't get any background. Whereas this guy, Hiko, actually has a bit of background to him.
He has more background than anyone else. We know he's Maori.
Right. Oh yeah.
He's got a strong New Zealand accent.
Yeah.
He's got face tattoos.
Yeah.
And he talks about opening a Maori school.
Yeah. So while they're in the eye of
He's the protagonist.
almost. You almost.
Well, this film doesn't have a protagonist, which is always a bold choice in a film of this genre, where you really need someone.
Well, I think what's happened here is Alien. I think Ridley Scott's Alien,
Yeah.
Dan O'Bannon's Alien has happened to this movie.
Yeah.
Because that's a movie, the first time you watch it, you think Tom Skerritt, Dallas, the handsome captain, is going to be the survivor at the end of the movie.
Yes.
Once it starts to go bad. No. It flops, right?
Yeah.
You get a real surprise.
Flips.
Yeah,
Not
spoiler, sorry.
Yeah, spoiler.
It turns into something completely different. You don't really know who the protagonist is in that movie, and I think he's ended up in that same
genius.
situation here.
Here, no.
That's right.
He's tried
It's
to rip it
genius
off
there. Here, it's just like, what is going on? Can I learn what anybody's job is, please, other than the captain? Why are they on the ship? What are they doing?
I'm coming down Team Hiko. He's the protagonist as far as I'm concerned.
So, Jamie Lee Curtis, who here is, I guess, doing the Sigourney Weaver, like, she's trying to... This is a weird period for her. I think she'd come back to Halloween around... H2O was around this time as well.
She certainly screams a lot in this film.
Well, in the later half of the film, not the first half.
No, in the first half she's tough.
She's tough, and then suddenly there's a scene where she ends up in water surrounded by devices. So she's screaming her head off, which is what she was famous for.
Yeah.
But she saw lots of dead bodies before and was not shrieking like this.
It's strange. In the interviews that I read in that magazine, she was adamant that she wasn't trying to play Sigourney Weaver, is what she was saying. That's what they're asking her. So is this Sigourney Weaver-like character? You be a tough chick, gonna shoot the alien? She's like, no, that's not my role. But it kind of is, until it isn't.
You know what? Yes, but I actually think there's some similarities between the two roles.
Yeah.
In another way. Not just the tough. The scene where Ripley finds out that Ash is going to sacrifice her. Like when she walks in on Ash and Mother, and she starts crying. Right? She's so vulnerable. It's one of the most amazing moments. And there's a little bit of that. Like, when they let Jamie Lee Curtis act in this movie, she has that kind of moment, but it's not nearly at that level, of course.
Right.
But.
Of course, because of course in Alien, Sigourney Weaver is not the same character that she is in like Alien 3 or
no,
something
absolutely
like that.
not.
She's much more vulnerable.
Yeah, very vulnerable. She's just a miner like everybody else. She's just a blue collar worker.
It's really some great writing, and you can see. You're right. I think they've tried. I think they've tried to copy that, but their idea of copying it is to have her tough the first half, screaming the second.
Yeah.
That's the best approximation they can get from the characterization from Alien.
Yeah. By the way,
even from Alien.
If I can open a sidebar, a tab, if I can open a new tab on Alien, how long does that saga take for Ripley from her point of view? 5 days? Because she's in cryo, and then she wakes up, she goes back. She's in cryo, she wakes up, she goes back. So for her, the whole Alien saga takes place over about a week, right? So it doesn't make sense for her to go for her personality to suddenly be like, I've dealt with these aliens before. That was yesterday, as far as... Anyway, close tab. I I do want to point out, so if I can jump way ahead, there's a huge change from the comic in the movie in that they find the Russian survivor. It's the girl that we met.
Yes.
Alexei's wife. She's still alive. There's a scene where she runs away. I'm jumping way ahead. Anyway, Alexei's wife, Nadia, she runs away. Jamie Lee Curtis, her character's name is Foster. She chases after her. And there's a moment they're alone, and Jamie Lee Curtis is like, tell me what happened. She says, well, there was an alien that came through the system, all this stuff, okay?
It's just a big info dump.
Yes. Here's what I'm trying to get to here. Mm-hmm. Alison Bechdel's comic strip, Dykes to Watch Out For, had one of the most critical comic strips of all time because it's entered into the comic.
This is where we get the term Bechdel.
The Bechdel test. But it wasn't. It shouldn't be called that because it wasn't Bechdel. It was her friend. In the strip, Bechdel's talking to her friend, and her friend says, "I only watch movies that meet 3 requirements. They have to have at least 2 women. The 2 women have to talk to each other, and they have to talk to each other about something other than a man." Mm-hmm. And Allison says to her friend, "Oh, that's pretty stringent, but cool, but you probably don't watch many movies." She's like, "Yeah, last movie I saw was Alien. The 2 women talked about the alien." And as I was watching this movie, I was like, when they had that conversation, I was like, whoa, this movie just passed the Bechdel test. And I was like, wait a second, it passed because it ripped off Alien so completely that it even ripped it off to the point of being able to pass the Bechdel test.
Genius. Very good, Kumar.
Crazy to me. Anyway.
Excellent digression. Well done.
Okay, so they find the Russian ship adrift. They turn it on, as in the comic, which they shouldn't do. But when they get there, Donald Sutherland, the captain, is like, hey, you know how much this is going to be worth for each of us if we salvage a ship with all this gear aboard? We're going to get $3 million each.
Yep.
And the crew's like, whoa, yeah, awesome. And Jamie Lee Curtis is like, I'm not so sure, which is similar to the comic. She's like the one... I think maybe even the guy, the Bruce Willis type.
Yeah, the Bruce Willis guy.
The Averill guy is like, I'm not so sure about this. But anyway, in this one, the William Baldwin character is like, oh yeah. But then the next scene, they're going down the stairs, and he's like, I don't trust. Like the captain had pulled a gun on him during the storm, and when he hears about the man, he's like, yeah, awesome. Then he's going down below decks with another character, and he's like, I'm not so sure about it. Why did you change your mind between scenes? I don't get it.
Right. It did seem a little odd.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
Captain Donald Sutherland's characters, this is a lifeline. He was about to kill himself. Yes. Now they found this state-of-the-art ship. We get in exhaustive detail exactly how they're going to make the money. Apparently, if it's found abandoned in international waters with no one aboard, it's salvage. They tow it to a port. Then the Russian government has to pay 10% of its value to them in order to reclaim it. 10% of... We figure out how much it's... Again, we go through a long scene where we figure out how much it's going to be.
Yeah,
it's worth
very long scene.
It's really long. It's worth
ready to talk about the dollar amounts.
Yeah, so why are you doing this? $300 million, then that's going to be $30 million, and then they start talking about what percentage of $30 million.
They're like, well, we each get 1%.
Keeps going on.
And then he's like, for some reason,
I'll kick it up to 10%.
He's generous, and he's like, I'll give you 10% each.
Because he needs them to
be on board.
To be on board with this foolhardy...
Pun intended.
Yeah, this is fine.
But the problem is, if there's kind of a good moment here where if anybody's alive on board, then it's not salvage. And then he says to Foster, he says, well, we better not find anyone alive. And she's like, what do you mean by that? And then later on, when we do find a live Russian, it's like, okay, is this going to turn it doesn't turn into anything.
No, but and this part's fine, because we can see that Donald Sutherland sells it. He's not happy to have found someone alive. But then she starts babbling about aliens. And he relaxes. We can see him visibly relax because he realizes he can have her declared mentally incompetent, and then his salvage rights will be respected because she's not compos mentis and she can't.
Right.
So he's found a loophole. He's grasping to add anything because he's lost everything with this barge. Anything, he's grasping at anything. It's fine. I'm on board with it. Here, I think the movie's made a mistake here. When they turn the power back on, we start seeing robots straight away.
Yeah, little spider creatures and stuff.
Don't show us them right away. You know, we need to see these things slowly. There needs to be a slow reveal for these kinds of things.
Even just have some sounds.
Yeah, and also there's a perfect opportunity because, as you said, Donald Sutherland, Jamie Lee Curtis's character says, "My father was an admiral. I know that if anyone's alive on this ship, we don't get salvage. It's still under their aegis or whatever." So, the movie's set up with the idea that there might be someone on the ship. let us think there's a person when this weird stuff starts happening. Only slowly reveal to us that there's something more sinister.
Yeah.
In fact, don't even bother with that first scene that we get where we see the Russian ship. It's like in The Thing. You remember in The Thing where we see the spaceship crash land in Antarctica, which is a scene that was John Carpenter didn't want, and executives made him at it so that people would get that there was an alien.
Right.
Way to draw the wrong lesson, Pfrarrer. You know, don't have that scene. Just have them go on a strange derelict ship and slowly discover that there's...
Well, in the comic, they don't have that.
Exactly.
Right.
So why put it in the film?
I know.
Weird, man. Yeah, a big missed opportunity there to build tension.
Yeah.
Instead, at an admittedly cool scene, we see a workshop fire up as soon as they plug in the fuses. And this looks cool. When I saw this, I thought, oh, is the rest of the movie going to be like this? Because we see one of the workshops on the ship. The ship has like 40 workshops, apparently. And as soon as they reactivate the power, we start seeing robotic arms, welding, moving parts around. It's very crowded. There's all kinds of crazy arms and legs, robotic arms and legs everywhere. It looks pretty impressive. And then we start seeing crappy spider robots kind of stumbling about. They're not very organic looking. They look very haphazard.
Yeah.
They're very clumsily, poorly articulated limbs, kind of like dragging around. So this is not... No, you should... If you're going to rip off Alien, rip off the bit where we don't see the alien.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of these things, right? It's not like there's just one. Because they built all these little spider creatures that we see walking around all the time.
Yeah.
So, Cliff Curtis, Hiko, has been injured.
Yep.
When the power comes back on, the anchor is dropped and it destroys their own ship.
Yes.
So
just like in the comic, yeah.
Much like in the comic, yeah. So, when that happened, Cliff was injured, and he's being fixed up in the infirmary, and that's when Nadia jumps out of a closet. She's been hiding there.
Yeah. She tries to shoot them.
Yes. So, she's got this whole story about these aliens, right?
We get a big info dump from her, stuff that she couldn't possibly know. She tells us everything about the alien. Everything. That it's electrical, not cellular in nature. That it's downloaded everything from the memory banks and has learned everything about humanity and the world.
Well,
and the globe and geography.
There's an early scene when they first arrive on the ship. The monitors, the cameras are looking at people.
That's cool.
It's kind of cool, but then it reads Everton's name tag.
Yeah.
Captain Everton. I'm like, why is this information... This thing can read English and it cares about this information?
This is why they could have, again, if there'd been someone on the ship, if we were led to believe that there was someone on the ship that was operating those cameras at first, I think that would have been a clever twist.
It made more sense, yeah. But when she said, oh, it downloaded all the information about it, so it knows everything, I'm like, okay, so it knows a captain is relevant, or so it knows English.
Yeah.
It knows about English. Captains. Okay, maybe.
You know, she even starts telling us stuff about how when it started downloading our information in the computer, how does it even make sense of that information? It's a floating energy being, whatever. She says it became aware of the three-dimensional world and it decided it wanted to be part of the three-dimensional world and it started building itself a three-dimensional body using robotic parts. It's like, how can you possibly know this?
Yes, how can you know it? And also, again, what was this thing doing before? So it never had a physical body until this is the first time it's encountered physical bodies and decides it wants that?
Yeah, why would it want that? And how could she possibly know that unless she'd spoken to it, which she hadn't?
Yeah.
It's because this is the director's brain fart. Yeah. I've got text from the interview, right? Which I'll return to when we do our votes.
Okay.
But essentially this is a John Bruno's brainwave.
Yeah.
And rather than have it shown, he decides to tell us.
Yeah.
Through dialogue.
Yeah. So, meanwhile, our, Brett and Parker are down in the hold. They encounter this Borg, right? This Tetsuo, the Iron Man.
Yeah. Which
is actually Alexei, who's been taken over.
Yeah.
I have to say, I did like the design of this half-human, half-machine
It's alright.
thing.
It doesn't move very fluidly.
It doesn't move fluidly, but it's pretty gross, like, the way it's put together.
I'll talk a bit more about that.
Okay.
Later, if you like, yeah.
So...
But it does look kind of cool. It does, it's kind of stumbling a bit.
Yeah, they managed to take it out.
Yeah.
They bring it back to the bridge.
They bring it to the bridge, yeah. Meanwhile, Donald Sutherland has decided that Nadia is crazy.
Okay, but now he sees this thing, but he still refuses to believe it's aliens. He says it's some Russian experiment that they don't want us to know about.
Yeah.
What difference does it make either way in terms of you and the danger that you're in?
Yeah, well, it's because here, again, to give them a little credit, if it's a Russian experiment, that doesn't affect his salvage thing. They were just doing shady hijinks on the high seas.
If it's an alien, it would be even less, because aliens have no rights to property on Earth.
He has to address that in some way, shape, or form. He has to engage with the concept of aliens, and it can distract him from his decision to salvage the ship. However, if it's just Russian shenanigans, he can dismiss that. They're trying to stop me from salvaging the ship.
If it's just Russian shenanigans, those shenanigans are still attacking him, firing at him, trying to kill him.
Yeah.
You still have to deal. You can't dismiss that.
Well, he wants to, because he's gone off the. Oh
yeah,
all he cares about is making
he's
money.
like cackling. He's laughing at stuff in these scenes, like he thinks things are.
I buy it. He's not a rational man at this stage. I'm okay with it.
Okay. So the ship is hit by the storm.
The storm comes back. Yes.
Comes back. By the way, Alexei's corpse, like, it breaks open and the spider thing pops out of it, much like another movie we've seen.
Yeah. Like when the head pops off. It's just like that, but it looks way worse. Yeah. How does this film look so much worse in 1999 than a film made in 1983?
You don't have Rob Bottin on board, that's why.
Yeah.
That's it. You need Rob Bottin or Rick Baker or Tom Savini or one of those guys.
They don't have that. Instead, it just looks, it happens very fast and it doesn't look very good. We don't get a long, loving shot of the head detaching itself and the
In fact, there's a scene here, so...
It all happens in under 5 seconds.
Yeah. So there's a scene here where creatures are dispatched very quickly in this movie. You think you're going to have a long set piece.
Because we can't look at them too long, because they're not...
Yeah, like when Donna Sutherland comes back, I thought, okay, this is going to be a 10-minute sequence. No, they just done with it.
They kill it really quick.
Yeah. There was a character called Squeaky, this Cuban guy.
Yeah.
Squeaky...
He's the first to go.
He was the first that was captured.
He very unwisely crawls into a Jeffrey's tube.
Yeah.
Following one of the alien crabs. One of the robot crabs. And he's promptly grabbed by something, pulled through. He gets turned into a Borg as well. He looks very much like a Borg. And the only thing he can say is, Steve. Because Steve Baker was his mate.
Yeah. But he kills
He's my favourite he looks the best out of anything in this, I think. He looks fantastic. They've put some... he looks just like a Borg.
Yeah,
that's why.
I liked Alexei, I think.
Alexei looked a bit rubbery to me and didn't move naturally. Whereas Steve, it's the actor himself. They've kept him in makeup for, 10, 12 hours. He's got a big lens over his right eye, just like a Borg.
Yes.
He's wearing blue makeup, just like a Borg. And he speaks in a robot voice and says, Steve. I just love it.
The voices are very inconsistent, by the way. Some of them, again, like the comic, sometimes they speak normally and they can quip. And sometimes they're like robotic. Yeah. Okay, so Steve kills this guy, Woody, who was the pilot.
Yeah.
Or helmsman. By punching him through the gut, which again reminded me of the Thing when the guy's hands go into it
when he's doing chest compressions on him.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And his hands go. He turns into a giant mouth and bites off his hands.
Yeah.
Damn it! That film's so much better.
Yes. So now we get a scene where they all crowd around the computer. It looks like a shot from Alien, where they're all looking at the monitor together. Yeah. And they talk to the virus.
Yeah.
They actually type in commands into a computer. They select English, and they're able to say, what are you, etc. And the thing speaks in a booming voice. I don't know where the speakers are.
Yeah.
Or what speakers it's using, but it speaks to them in a voice. You are a virus. Ooh, big twist. It calls humans a virus.
Yeah.
You are a virus.
Except that's dumb.
Yep. They are not a virus to that creature that arrived from outer space in any way.
That creature does... No. That's the lamest thing ever. So it decides that humans are inimical to its continued existence, and the best fit it can come up with in the entire English language is a virus? No. And in fact, the definition of virus that it offers up, you see, because we get... it shows us as scanning through the English dictionary.
Yes, scan the dictionary. Yes.
Looking for the best term best to describe human beings. Yes. The threat that human beings represent to it. A singular organism made of electrical energy existing in a computer on a ship on the high seas. We even get the definition. And the definition says, any of various submicroscopic pathogens composed essentially of a core of a single nucleic acid enclosed in a protein coat. I don't think that describes human beings.
No.
God, the movie's like, oh.
At this point, somebody goes crazy and starts shooting the place up, and I think it's Richie.
Yeah, Richie.
The black guy, one black guy. Well, unless you can't, Hiko is like, hey, he's gone postal, which is not a term I've heard in a very long time as an attempt at a joke to say somebody's gone postal.
It as well?
It wasn't Hiko, it was Richie that said it.
No, Richie's the guy that went crazy. Hiko's the one that says he goes postal.
Oh, he's going postal, okay.
An interesting... is that an analogy that's commonly used in...
It used to be like
in New Zealand?
It used to be like a non-joke. Oh, not in New Zealand, I think that's a good point.
Why would a New Zealander say go postal?
No. So now, after they leave, after everybody runs out of the room, Everton's left alone with the computers, and he starts communicating with it like, I'll help you. Now, he has to type into the machine. This thing apparently has video but no audio, I guess?
Of course it has. Oh, maybe. Maybe it doesn't.
He can't speak to it. He has to type to it. He can see him, but he can't hear him.
The thing is, it can see them. The alien can see everything because it has cameras in every room. We constantly see the cameras looking at stuff. Including Richie now goes off and has his own whole plan. He rigs up a whole dead man switch kind of deal. We know there's a camera in that room because later in the movie we see it looking at the... So... the alien seems to be watching them all the time, yet it only appears when the script needs it to.
Yes.
The alien wants to kill everybody on the ship. It needs them for spare parts.
Yep. Now,
so it thinks we're a virus, but it also wants us for spare parts.
Okay, and why is Everton cutting a deal with the virus? Does that help him get his salvage?
I suppose that he says. I think it does. He needs to get the ship to a port in order to claim the salvage, and he's decided that whatever the alien does is someone else's problem, as long as he gets paid.
Okay.
He's completely irrational.
Right.
I mean,
so in the comic, they're constantly trying to shut down the power again, but the engines have been moved by the creature.
Yeah. The DC
Do they
generator.
try to shut down the power in this movie again?
Nope.
They just leave the power on.
No, Nadia keeps saying they need to shut down the power, but they don't.
And they won't listen to her, right?
No, they don't. Instead, they try to find the computer core.
Okay.
And this time, it's the computer core that's been moved.
Okay.
And I think maybe incorporated into the large robot.
Okay.
Although that's never made clear.
Okay.
Do you know how finally there's a sort of large robot that's in the final third of the movies?
That's like the Brundlefly.
Yeah, the Brundlefly robot.
Yeah.
I think that's now the alien.
Okay.
It's become centralized in that robot.
Okay.
It's not stated as such.
Okay.
And again, why would it be an advantage to it to centralize itself in one location when it can spread throughout an entire ship? There's no reason why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's so that we can say that's the baddie.
Yes.
When they kill that, it's game over.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. There's no floating floppy disks in this version.
No.
Okay, so Captain Everton is taken over. He's betrayed by the alien, the virus.
Yeah.
He comes back as a Tetsuo, the Iron Man. He's got no shirt, but he's got his captain hat on.
Yeah. Well, it's not his body. It's Wood's body.
Oh.
It's his head on Woods' body.
Oh, I see.
And at first
it was so funny that he still had the hat on.
Yeah, I know. It was hilarious.
And he can speak normally.
Yes, but he gives two lines in his normal voice. I'm still your commanding officer. Yeah, stuff like that. But then he speaks in the voice of the Legion, the voice of the alien. So there's probably no Everton anymore. It was just using his...
Oh yeah, it switches voices.
Yeah.
That's right, it switches. Why?
I think, again, no real reason. I think probably there's no Everton anymore. It's just been taken over like The Thing. The Thing is
get that, but when it walked into the room, it should have used the full robot voice instead of ever having the Everton voice.
Who knows why aliens do the thing they do? Oh, I agree, this is a problem, actually. This is the problem with having the alien something you can talk to.
Yeah.
No one ever talks to the Thing. Yeah. And in the comic, no one ever talked to...
That's right.
The program. When you talk to a thing, and a thing talks back, now you know a bit about it. Now you start wondering what's its goals. What does it want? We know what its goals are. We know what it wants. It sees humans as a threat. It says it wants to survive. It wants us for spare parts. What does making Captain Everton talk in his own voice have to do with those goals? Nothing. So it just raises questions. It's better to have the alien unknowable, then you can make it do whatever you want.
Yes. But by taking over Everton, it now knows everything that the captain knew. This is pointed out specifically by, I think, Nadia.
Yes.
What happens? Like, keep this in mind.
Yeah.
So this is, as I mentioned earlier, they quickly dispatch him in a matter of seconds. He goes through the floor a bit like the alien melting through the acid floor. Anyway.
Yes, because with a thermite grenade, and we're introduced to a thermite grenade in the sickbay when Nadia first appears, and someone actually says, I think it's Jamie Lee Curtis's character says, "Be careful of that thermite grenade. If it goes off, it'll melt right through the bulkheads, straight through to the ocean."
Oh, yeah, there's some setup of stuff here in earlier scenes. It's like, oh, that's a setup. Like they find this escape pod. And I'm like, oh, you're mentioning this? Hey, this is some kind of escape pod. I'm like, come on. Could you be any more obvious about this? The
ejector seat? Why would there be an ejection seat on a...
There's missile. They also have a missile on board.
On a ship that has no armament.
Science vessel.
Because Jamie Lee Curtis, when she's reading the catalogue of ships, and she reads out the description of the ship, she says, no armaments. Yet it has missiles on it.
Yeah.
And missile launch tubes that also have ejection seats. And you can launch yourself out through the missile launch tubes in an ejection seat. What good is an ejection seat in the ocean?
Yeah.
What are you going to eject out onto?
Yeah.
It's so dumb.
Yeah. And then they go out of the way to point it out in the second act of the movie.
Yeah. So Richie, this is where it's in this room where Richie sets up his dead man switch. Essentially,
yeah.
he's got a plan. He says, I was in the Navy for 6 years as a weapons specialist. You're not going to outsmart me, alien. I've got a plan. And his plan, as it turns out, is to get a rocket, take the engine out of the rocket, or the propellant, out of the rocket, put it on one of the missile silos. There are only 2 missile silos, missile tubes. He puts the rocket on one, and he's going to put himself in the other, where there's the ejector seat. And the plan apparently is for the rocket to go out one tube and then to drag the ejector seat through the other with the power of the rocket. And then, as it leaves, it's going to pull the pins on some thermite grenades and blow up the ship.
Yeah.
Okay. This is so dumb.
Yeah.
There's no way this would work. Because how could he possibly have set up a rope that would pull this ejector seat
out from one tube into the other tube?
Yes. How can the engine go out one tube and pull them through the other tube?
Yeah.
That can't happen. It would pull them through the same tube.
Yeah.
They would get wrenched out from where they are and yanked behind.
Yeah.
The only possible way he could have done it is if he went outside the ship and dragged the cable through the tube.
Yes.
That didn't happen though.
Yeah.
I'm just watching, just thinking that thing would have killed them.
Yeah. Anyway, after they get rid of Everton, this is when the scene with Foster screaming at all the dead bodies in the water.
Yeah, she's now a scream queen again.
The virus,
returning to her roots.
The virus catches her, and when it hooks her up to this system to interrogate her, it uses a keyboard.
Yeah, I noticed that
to use the computer.
Why would it need to use a keyboard?
Why is it using a keyboard? Like Brundlefly. Why?
It's like Brundlefly. Why would this thing need to type? I've written in my notes.
It needs to interface with the keyboard. That is crazy. Okay, then it starts questioning her. It wants information.
Do you understand English?
Yes.
You already know she understands English.
Here's a bigger problem. The thing put itself into Everton's brain and sucked all his knowledge, much like the Borg did with Captain Picard
in The Best of Both Worlds.
So why does the thing just take over her brain and figure out what it knows, what she knows?
Yeah, why not?
Instead of asking her questions.
Unless it meant...
I would say it reminded me of the Call to John scene in Terminator.
Yeah.
You called to John.
Yeah.
Why don't you imitate...
You can shapeshift.
You can imitate people's voices.
Anyway, whatever. Yeah,
anyway,
that is
like
what it's like. It's ripping off that. Sure. Call to John. So, it's just so that we can have an interrogation scene. Because it's torturing.
But I could say the T-1000 was malfunctioning. Its voice was malfunctioning.
Maybe.
I don't know what's going on here that it can't just get into her brain
we
again.
want a torture scene. Well, maybe it can't take your brain information. Maybe they just assumed Everton had told it everything it needs to know. But I'm probably giving the film too much credit.
Okay, so they've set up these bombs. The thing finds a detonator. The alien finds the detonator and crushes it.
Checkmate.
It says checkmate, which
so
is
it can hear what people are saying because they say Nadia says checkmate when she sets up the detonator.
This is also why they translated the chess line at the start of the movie because of the chess theme.
Oh, right.
I just realized.
Oh God. That sucks.
Yes, but it makes jokes again. I don't know. Yeah, so now we get the rocket escape. They crash in the water. We get a sequence where she finds Hiko, who had earlier been washed out to sea, and she thinks he's going to be alive, but he's dead, but then he comes back to life because he's a robot.
But it all just happens very quickly, and then it's over.
It's a nightmare. It turned out to be a nightmare. She wakes up in the helicopter.
The only time anyone's had a nightmare. So
it's very similar to the spoiler ending of Friday the 13th Part 1.
Yep.
Where she's attacked by Jason in the water, and then she wakes up in the water.
Yep, in the water.
And then she wakes up in the hospital bed.
Right. It's exactly like that.
And that's the end.
Yeah, and then it very kind of just sort of fizzles out.
Yeah.
You know, Billy Baldwin says, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. Oh, okay, it was a nightmare?
Yeah.
You're safe now. And then they fly away in a helicopter and that's it. No floppy disk.
Yeah.
And that's the end of this terrible movie.
Yeah, okay. Give us your trivia.
Trivia
There
time.
must be a good amount on this.
There is a bit. Okay. There is a bit. Okay, so this film cost... We'll go do the budget first. This film cost $75 million to make.
Where is that money? Up somebody's nose. No, 1999?
They spent a lot of money on the effects.
Okay.
As I said, this is a real ship.
Oh, right. Yeah, right.
They built an enormous tank to film... so that they could simulate those large waves.
Yes, I did notice that the waves were impressive, like the storm scene.
Yeah, they spent a lot. They decided they were going to do this. There's only a little CGI in this film, arguably to the film's detriment. They spent a lot of money on practical effects. They built something like 17 of those small robots, and about 4 or 5 of those what John Bruno called biomechanoids, which are those humanoid, the bipedal robots.
Isn't that what H.R. Giger called his creatures? Biomechanicals.
Right. Okay. Again, ripping off better work.
Yeah.
Yes. Box off. Okay, so $75 million. For reference, The Matrix came out this year as well. Okay. 1999.
Okay.
A film where another antagonist describes human beings as a virus.
Yeah.
Agent Smith. That cost $63 million.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Wow.
So more than $10 million cheaper.
Wow.
And they couldn't look more different.
Yeah.
This film looks cheap. Despite a $75 million price tag, this film looks cheap.
Yeah.
It looks like a B-movie with some inexplicably A-list actors and performances, some decidedly B and C-list actors and performances, and certainly they've spent a lot of money on these practical effects, but they're not measuring up to what they want to portray. It made $30.7 million.
Okay. That's impressive for what it is. But there was a period of time, I don't know if you remember this, but after Terminator 2 came out, people wanted to see CG in movies.
Yep.
They're like, whoa, I want to see some of that CG stuff.
Right.
Wanted more of it. For a period of a few years.
Yep.
Now, this is past that period, I think.
Well, 99. I mean, The Matrix is there's a lot of CG in The Matrix.
Oh, that's true. So
and it looks great.
We're still craving for it. But there was that period where it was like, like the Lawnmower Man, like, we need to see more of this in some form. Like, I need it in me.
I respect, I have a set, so a company called XFX Incorporated did the effects.
Okay.
Headed by a guy called Steve Johnson, who also worked on Species.
Okay.
Who was the other writer. Dennis Feldman, he wrote Species, so there's a connection there. He's most famous for designing Slimer from the Ghostbusters movies. Okay. And, a lot of work he put a lot of work in this. That Alexei robot that you liked, that one was controlled by telemetry from a human user. So a person would strap on, sort of like mocap, strap on sensors and move, and the robot would move in a similar fashion. It could walk, as you saw. it had a sort of a large brace at the back, like a third leg, essentially to stabilise it, which was removed digitally, so that it was able to look like it was walking unaided, essentially. All done with hydraulics and pneumatics. So that robot, you know, this is serious machinery going on here. In fact, the hydraulic puppets were so dangerous. A red light would flash when they were in use, so that the actors knew to stay away.
So this is like what Stanley Kubrick wanted for AI, right? Because he couldn't make AI. He was ready to do it, but he wanted to build an actual robot.
Right.
That's why it never got made until he died, and then Spielberg got his hands on it.
Yeah, and then that movie.
So it sounds like these guys were actually building the robots.
They were building it. It's just a shame that they don't look good. The crew were told, given a memo that said, when these robots are in operation, treat them like a wild animal.
Okay.
Just don't go anywhere near them.
Wow.
They built that. So the sort of Brundlefly robot, which they called the Goliath robot, it was too cumbersome to kind of move under its own power.
Okay.
So that's why that is CG in the latter quarter of the movie, essentially.
Right.
And I must admit, that CG looks fine, really.
Yeah. The CG's decent.
Yeah, I can't help but wonder that maybe it was a bit of a white elephant going for a wholly practical film.
Yeah.
Spending all their money on that, they could have just saved a bit and done some computer graphics like The Matrix. There was merchandise.
Okay.
Action figures were made.
Wow.
Including figures of the Captain and Squeaky.
Uh-huh.
They were with their in their roboticized forms, and they came with attachments to restore their human appearance.
Whoa.
Apparently.
It sounds pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it does sound cool. There was a novelization by S.D. Perry, who also wrote the novelization for Time Cop.
Right.
Blast from the past there. And a Cryo Interactive game studio, which you will definitely have heard of.
Yeah. Did the Dune...
They did. They made the famous Dune game. In fact, that was the basis for all their success, which they essentially coasted on for the rest of their career because they made ever more terrible games.
Right.
They made a tie-in game for this. It was called only released in Europe, called Virus. It is Aware, and apparently it was crap, like so much of their work. All right, that's just about it for trivia.
Okay.
Shall we do our votes?
Yes. I think actually, I don't know how we're going to go on adaptation. Comic, big nay for me. It's so dumb. It's trying to be Commando in comic book form, and it's just so bad.
Yep. Derivative, clumsy, confusing.
Yeah.
The art isn't great. The dialogue is cliched and terrible.
Yeah.
There's eyeballs everywhere.
Yeah.
This comic sucks.
Yeah. Nay. It's bad. The movie... Did I mention Event Horizon?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
A much better movie.
Yes. Also derivative, mostly of the works of Clive Barker, I think. But, kind of had good things about it.
Anyway, we can't talk about Event Horizon.
No, but I'm trying to get to a point that that Virus doesn't have any of those things. And if you pressed me and said, what's your favorite movie? I would probably say Alien. And I found this movie kind of offensive in the ways it ripped off Alien and just tried to... And the comic especially is trying to beat Alien with Bruce Willis in it.
And The Thing.
And The Thing. And...
The Thing if MacReady was shirtless.
Even Alien is also the same plot. They find a derelict ship. Everybody's dead on that ship. And then they bring back something from it. It's exactly the same.
Yeah. It's a big mess.
Although, Alien itself was pulling from Who Goes There.
Yeah.
So, it's all kind of in the same mix. But it really bugged me how bad this was.
Yeah.
It annoyed me.
Yeah. So are you still talking about the comic or are we onto the film?
No, that's the film.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Despite its enormous budget, it looks cheap.
Yeah.
The plot makes absolutely no sense and also makes some kind of really kind of rookie errors. Not having a protagonist to identify with in a film like this. Who was I supposed to care about?
Yeah. Lots of storytelling problems.
Yeah.
By the way, I think...
And a mistake to talk to the alien, as I said as well.
Yes.
Why is the...
Although it was good to have Nadia be alive, that was like a good shortcut for...
Sure, but they use it in the most ham-fisted way because she just...
Yes, of course.
She just vomits out all this exposition.
Yeah.
She's just an exposition machine.
Yeah.
we're able to find out what the alien wants, but they never try. The alien's just something to be overcome. It's just pure evil because it turns humans into bio-robots. You can't engage with it in any way, shape or form except to kill it. Except you can speak to it. I understand why you can't speak to the thing, you can't speak to the alien, you couldn't speak to the virus in the comic because it was just code. This thing's alive.
Yeah.
Why is it utterly inimical to human life?
Yeah.
Just because the film says it is.
Yeah.
We need to kill this thing, because if it gets out, what's it going to do if it gets out? We don't know. The virus code in the comic obviously is just going to reproduce itself endlessly and take over everything, because that's what viruses do. But here we're the virus.
Yes, that's right.
So what does the alien want?
Never addressed the
only thing it says to the captain is, help me survive.
Yes.
What does its survival entail? It doesn't necessarily entail taking over the world. It might just want to go back to... We never find out. Whatever. It's just a bunch of crap.
By the way, I think Jamie Lee quite hates this movie. I saw some headline
She absolutely does.
Thought it was dreadful, but she's like, she doesn't hold back.
No.
Especially these days, like she's reached that age where she just like says what she...
I found an interview with her. I followed a link from the Wikipedia article. I think it was published in about 2012. Virus is so bad, it's shocking. That would be the all-time piece of shit. It's just dreadful. A friend of mine, for his 40th birthday, had a bad show business party where everyone bought terrible show business clips. That's the only good reason to be in a bad movie. Then when your friends have this kind of thing, a bad movie contest, you can say, I've got the best one, I'm bringing virus. Paraphrased. That's essentially what she said. Yeah.
Right.
But while we're on the subject of the film, John Bruno... So, okay. John Bruno left Titanic to do this film.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. He was working on Titanic. That's why he was meeting those Russian sailors.
Right.
That's why he was experiencing that typhoon on a Russian ship. He was working with James Cameron on Titanic, and he left Titanic to do this film. That was a big mistake. And apparently Cameron was editing something at Skywalker Ranch or somewhere like that, and John Bruno took the completed virus film and showed it to, this is according to Cinefantastic magazine, and showed it to James Cameron, who apparently liked it. Maybe.
Cameron says that about everything which is from people he worked with.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
he
course.
likes, like, Terminator, Dark Fate.
Of course.
But he doesn't like 3.
Of course.
Because he has some relationship with the person who made 4.
Okay. Well, okay, that makes sense. And of course, Bruno's his friend. They've worked together on Avatar since then. He's not going to tell his mate that his film sucks, but he did say something.
Okay.
Maybe that Bruno should have read between the lines on. He said, maybe it's not so good that I make phone calls on your behalf to promote this film. That is, if you associate yourself with me, or vice versa. If Titanic tanks, then you'll go down with it. We'll all go down together. Titanic didn't tank, but this film did.
Yeah.
And Bruno has not directed any more films since.
Yeah.
Adaptation.
It's actually nay for me.
Yeah.
Because the way I always look at it is, imagine you're a reader of the comic and you like the comic, even if it's a bad comic. Imagine you're like, wow, this comic's awesome. It's got very specific things about it. It's got a protagonist who's a Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis type, right? Your Stallone type in that role. And then you go to see this movie and you've got Jamie Lee Curtis instead. I think you would be disappointed in that sense. So I think this is a nay. I don't think it's... Whatever phases this went through from screenplay to comic to screenplay again, somehow, I mean, is the movie better than a comic? Yes. Is it an adaptation of the comic? A good adaptation? No, I don't think so. I think it's, like I mentioned earlier, I think it's repaired some things and messed up others. Yeah. But it's not like reading the comic. It actually is better to look at than the comic. I don't think that's, in a sense, a bad adaptation, but I think the lack of a protagonist, which you've come back to again and again, is the big difference. Yeah.
I find, because I hated both these things, it's hard to care about what kind of adaptation it is.
Yes.
I guess I would also come down on nay, mostly for similar reasons, that I feel like the changes that it does make generally don't add to it or make it confusing, and the holes they do patch just often have led to further questions down the line. why make the storm last the whole film?
Yeah.
What does that add? It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
That doesn't contribute in any way to the pacing, to the stakes.
No.
It's just because John Bruno went through a storm, making it making it a sentient alien with wants and needs instead of
good point.
Instead of just code.
Yeah.
Again,
big change that is weird.
Big change that doesn't add much.
No.
So for me, it's Nate, and I did promise I'd come back to John Bruno and his thoughts about the changes that he made. He said, I wanted to keep the title virus, but I didn't want to do a computer virus. Basically...
That's the point of it.
Yes, that's the point. Basically, the idea is an electrical life form that hits the mirror during a transmission. It gets into the electrical system, gets into the computer, and instantly figures out ones and zeros. It learns suddenly about a dimensional place, the ship, and where the ship is. It learns that there are life forms all over this planet. So it's got everything. It's got maps, it's got languages, and everything you could imagine that had been a big computerized spy ship. It goes through biological records, files, life forms, and starts to manufacture itself, using parts of the ship and crew into a dimensional thing. Now, if that sounds familiar, it's because that's basically what Nadia said in her scene.
Yeah, right.
So Nadia is literally just spewing the director's quote-unquote clever take on the comic he's read.
Yeah.
That's not a good adaptation.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Okay, so please like, rate, review, subscribe on whatever your platform is. Please join us on Facebook for the memes. Please join us on Instagram for the reels. Please join our Instagram at... Not Instagram, our Patreon. At www.patreon.com/comicbookmovieoblivion. All one word. We do need the help with the hosting fees and sometimes books and DVDs and all sorts of stuff.
Jump on. We'll invent some subscriber rewards for you.
We will do that if we can ever get more than one subscriber.
We'll take requests.
Yes, we'll give you a shout out, whatever you want.
Whatever you want. Anything.
Please contact us either by DMing through Instagram or
Twitter,
Facebook or Twitter, or even the email address which is in the show notes.
Brilliant.
Okay, next week we have a very special episode because we're going to be covering My Friend Dahmer, and we will have an interview with Back Durf.
Very exciting.
Which has already been recorded and was a great chat for about an hour.
Amazing. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think that's about all the preamble. I will say, we'll run the interview in the episode first. So I'm doing preempting to pause the podcast. And we talk about all sorts of stuff that's specific in the book and the movie. So
be warned.
You might want to check those out before listening to the interview.